Ramsey, the co-captain. He's flying it. Martin Withers, the chief pilot of the Trust, the man who flew the Vulcan down to the Falkland Islands, is the other co-captain. And Jonathan Lazari is the air electronics officer, third member of the crew, down the back, behind the two pilots. Here she is then, in her last ever flying display season. When this aeroplane lands in October, you will never see another Vulcan. Starting at about 160 knots, 184 miles an hour, and accelerating up to 300 knots. And pulling away off to our left to come straight in from the far side of the airfield. And the noise there coming from 4 Rolls-Royce Bristol Olympus engines, 202 engines, 16,500 pounds of static thrust each, total of about 65,000. The same engine, a later model, was the engine that powered Concorde. Of course, the Concorde ones had reheat. This was not a supersonic aeroplane, the Vulcan. But if you look at the shape, and if you extend that shape by about 1 3/4, you do actually get recognizably Concorde. The shape that was to become Vulcan, first drawn on a scruffy piece of paper in 1946 by the man who designed the fantastic Lancaster, Roy Chadwick. He died in 1947 in a crash, and he never saw his brilliant design fly. Nor did he see it become the first successful operational delta-winged aircraft in the world, rather like R.J. Mitchell not seeing his Spitfire into RAF service. So watch now as Bill Ramsey takes the aircraft into a spiral climb. And we got it, the famous Vulcan howl. There are different explanations for how that happens. The easiest is that people say it's a bit like blowing over the top of a Coke bottle. You've got 2 engines on each side with a single intake, and under certain conditions you get that wonderful whistling sound. She's getting her wheels down now. She's not going to land here. The runway's not long enough, but we will see her fly by with her wheels down. So you get to see the 18 wheels of the aircraft, 16 in the main undercarriage and 2 of the nose wheel. So the RAF got its first Vulcan in 1956. It had been designed with the Valiant and the Victor to carry the British nuclear deterrent during the Cold War. Last year it was 25 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of European communist regimes, which eventually ended the Cold War, and this aeroplane was a significant player in that ending of the Cold War. Undercarriage coming up as she goes by. After Vulcans virtually went out of service as part of the Vulcan display flight, because then as now everybody loved her so much they wanted her to keep on flying as a display aircraft. And she finally retired from the RAF in 1993. Now as she comes by this time, watch for the bomb doors opening, and you'll see that capacious bomb bay that carried 21 1,000-pound bombs. So Jonathan Lazari, the AEO, is opening the bomb bay as she goes by. And that, of course, is the heart of the bomber. And that was the bomb load that Martin Withers, sitting in the right-hand seat today, took the more than 7,000 miles down to the Falkland Islands from Ascension Islands, 7,000 miles round trip. He was supported by 11 Victor tankers, and he had 18 refuelings in order to get that bomb load to the Falkland Islands and bomb the runway at Port Stanley. He dropped all 21 1,000-pound bombs, and they hit the runway with 2, and that was about par for the course because these were dumb wartime bombs. If you wanted to make sure of hitting a point target, you had to have lots of overkill. So they did what they were supposed to do, and they eventually got back. Martin Withers was awarded the DFC, and it was a turning point in the Falklands War. It gave the Argentines pause for thought, and they didn't station their fast jets on the Falkland Islands, which was significant in the prosecution of the war. Bombay doors closed now. As you can see, she's as maneuverable as a fighter. After she left the RAF, nobody thought we'd ever see a Vulcan fly again, but they didn't. They counted without 2 people in particular, but lots of others. David Walton, who bought this aeroplane and all the spares, and Dr. Robert Fleming, who eventually formed what is now the Vulcan to the Sky Trust. And she eventually flew again in 2007, so 8 years ago. It's been an extraordinary, there's always been the problem of money. And now this has become her last year because the 3 technical authority companies that have to be, by regulation, looking after her, or rather not looking after, but certificating her, have decided that they can't afford to support her anymore. So at the end of the year, she will land and there will never be another Vulcan flying again. And interestingly, there will also never be another British-built 4-jet aeroplane flying again. That's how significant she is. But she's going to have a fantastic season this year. Lots of exciting dates already lined up. See, she can whisper by when she's not making lots of noise. Well, Bill Ramsey has done a slightly different display, but I rather fear that was the last pass. And so, as I said, if this is your only air show of the season, then that will be your last sight of Vulcan flying. I can only suggest that, as the great Dr. Seuss said, the man who wrote those wonderful children's books,